Ikigai explores the ancient Japanese concept of finding one's purpose or reason for being as the key to a long, joyful, and meaningful life. Drawing from the lifestyles of Okinawa's centenarians, the authors blend insights from Japanese philosophy, interviews with long-living individuals, and scientific research to uncover practical habits that promote health, happiness, and longevity. The book emphasizes balance, simplicity, and living with intention, highlighting the importance of staying active, nurturing relationships, eating mindfully, and always having something to look forward to. It serves as both a gentle guide and a reflective journey into understanding what makes life truly worth living. About the author, Hector Garcia is a Spanish-born author, engineer, and former software developer who has lived in Japan for over a decade. Fascinated by Japanese culture and philosophy, he has devoted much of his work to sharing the country's unique wisdom with a global audience. Before Ikigai, he gained recognition for his book A Geek in Japan, which explores modern and traditional aspects of Japanese life. Garcia's deep immersion in Japanese society, along with his analytical background, allows him to blend Eastern philosophical ideas with accessible, real-world insights. His collaboration with co-author Francesc Morales on Ikigai brought this powerful concept to millions around the world. In a quiet corner of the world, nestled between the green hills and the endless sea, lies a group of islands where people live unusually long, joyful lives. One of these islands is Okinawa, a place where time seems to move a little slower. The air feels a little gentler, and laughter echoes through the winding streets well into old age. It is in this peaceful land that a mystery has captured the world's attention. A secret that helps people live not only longer but fuller and more meaningful lives. This secret is called Ikigai. Long ago in Japan, the word Ikigai was born from two ideas, Iki, meaning life, and Gai, meaning value or worth. Put together, it reflects the idea of a reason to wake up each morning with purpose and enthusiasm. It's that gentle inner flame that keeps a person going, even through the quiet or difficult days. Everyone, it is believed, carries an Ikigai within them, though not everyone has discovered it yet. Two curious souls, Hector Garcia and Francesc Morales, set off to understand this quiet magic. They traveled far from the busy streets of Tokyo and deep into the villages of Okinawa, where people lived far beyond 100 years with cheerful hearts and clear minds. They met wise old women who still tended their gardens, men who practiced martial arts at sunrise, and friends who gathered daily under the banyan trees to share stories and laughter. What, the authors wondered, made these people so vibrant even as they aged? The answer, they discovered, wasn't just one thing. It wasn't found in money or fame or achievement. It was found in simplicity and daily routines filled with joy, community, and purpose. The elders they met had no need for retirement. They lived by doing what they loved, and they loved what they did. Whether it was fishing, teaching, farming, or dancing, each person had something that made life feel meaningful. Their Ikigai wasn't always something grand or celebrated. Often it was humble, quiet, and personal, but it gave them a reason to keep going, and that made all the difference. As they listened to the stories of these wise villagers, Hector and Francesc also learned how the body and mind played together in harmony. These long-living people were always in motion, not hurried, but constantly engaged. They didn't sit still for long. They walked, they gardened, they cooked, they cleaned. Their lives flowed with a gentle rhythm of movement and care. They believed that staying active kept their bodies young and their spirits light. But physical activity was only part of the picture. These elders also believed in nourishing the mind. Each day was a chance to learn something new, to challenge the brain with puzzles, poetry, or conversation. Some played board games, others practiced calligraphy or read ancient tales. This mental curiosity, they believed, kept their memories strong and their thoughts sharp, even in their oldest years. Food, too, played an important role in this gentle way of living. The Okinawans practiced something called hara-hachi-bu, a saying passed down from their ancestors that reminded them to eat only until they were 80% full. Meals were small, colorful, and packed with vegetables, tofu, miso, and sweet potatoes. Green tea was sipped throughout the day, and meat was rare. Eating mindfully, slowly, and with gratitude was as important as what was on the plate. But beyond the habits and practices, what shone most brightly was the warmth of their relationships. These communities were built on deep bonds. People looked out for one another. They formed small friendship groups called moe, which offered emotional and financial support. These bonds were lifelong. In joy or sorrow, no one was truly alone. This deep sense of belonging was another quiet thread that wove its way through their long lives. As the days passed, Hector and Francesc noticed something else. Stress seemed almost absent. The elders spoke calmly, smiled often, and handled hardships with remarkable grace. They didn't hurry or dwell on regrets. Instead, they embraced the moment fully and gratefully. Many had lived through war, loss, and hardship, but they carried their burdens lightly. Rather than trying to control everything, they let life unfold with trust and patience. They often spoke of flow, that beautiful state where you are so absorbed in what you're doing that time disappears. Whether it was painting, cooking, pruning a bonsai tree, or playing a song, they found joy in getting lost in the present. When you are in flow, the mind stops wandering and worries fade. It is a deep form of peace and one that nourishes the spirit. The authors realized that Ikigai isn't a destination, but a way of being. It's not about achieving perfection or doing something extraordinary. It's about living in a way that aligns with who you truly are, doing what brings you joy, serving others in a way that feels natural, and growing in small ways every day. It might be found in caring for a grandchild, writing in a journal, fixing bicycles, or making soup. The magic is in the doing. And so, as they watched the sun set over the peaceful island, Hector and Francesc began to see the picture more clearly. A long and happy life wasn't about chasing dreams or reaching goals. It was about cultivating a life that feels full every day. That meant waking up with something to look forward to, sharing meals with friends, moving with grace, resting when needed, and smiling often. The people of Okinawa weren't striving. They were simply being, and in their being they had discovered their Ikigai. As the breeze carried the scent of blooming hibiscus across the fields of Okinawa, Hector and Francesc continued their gentle journey into the heart of what it means to live with purpose. After spending time with the elders, listening to their laughter, and walking with them through gardens and markets, they realized that Ikigai wasn't some mystical secret locked away in a scroll. It was found in the simplest corners of life. In a pot of soup simmering on the stove, in a shared story, in the steady hands of someone making tea. They thought deeply about how people in other parts of the world often rush from one task to another, burdened by stress and a need to prove something. In contrast, the Okinawan elders moved through life with calm. There was no urgency in their steps, no rush in their speech. Their secret wasn't speed or ambition, it was rhythm. They had learned the quiet art of living slow, and that slowness allowed them to savor each moment, each person, each breath. The authors reflected on how often people search for happiness in the future, in a better job, a new house, or some far-off success. But the people of Okinawa reminded them that joy doesn't live in the future. It lives in today, in the early morning sunlight, in a conversation over tea, in the way your fingers curl around a warm bowl of rice. To find your Ikigai, you must stop running and begin noticing. One morning, while sitting with a group of elders under the shade of an old tree, they asked what kept them going each day. The answers were as varied as the colors in a garden. One man said it was his vegetable patch. Another said it was helping his neighbor fix bicycles. And one woman said it was teaching her grandchildren how to cook. There was no single definition of Ikigai, because it is as unique as the person who holds it. What mattered most was that each of them had something they loved, something that gave them a sense of usefulness and joy. The authors also learned that these elders didn't seek to separate work and life. They saw no need to retire because they loved what they did. Whether it was running a small shop, weaving baskets, or caring for animals, their activities were not burdens, they were joys. Even at 90 or 100 years old, they woke with something to do, and that sense of purpose lit up their days. And while they worked, they also laughed. Laughter was everywhere soft and warm like a favorite blanket. It flowed during meals, during walks, and even when recalling hard times. This lightness, this refusal to carry life too heavily, helped them bounce back from hardships. Resilience, the authors realized, was one of the strongest threads in the Okinawan way of life. These elders had weathered typhoons, poverty, and loss, but they had done so with open hearts. They didn't shut out the pain, they simply chose to walk with it, side by side with joy. As they moved through the island, Hector and Francesc began to understand that Ikigai was also closely tied to community. The elders were not alone, nor did they face their problems in isolation. They belonged to lifelong groups of friends, the Moe. These were small circles formed in youth, often organized by the village, where members supported each other emotionally and financially for life. It was like having a family beyond family, one chosen and cherished. In times of celebration or sorrow, the Moe would gather, bringing food, music, and stories. In the modern world, many people feel lonely, but on this island, loneliness was rare. Someone was always checking in, always stopping by with a fruit or a smile. These social bonds didn't just bring joy, they protected the heart from the weight of isolation. Studies have shown that deep connections like these can reduce stress, improve health, and even extend life. The elders didn't need to be told that. They lived it every day. Back in their notebooks, the authors began writing down the lessons they were quietly collecting. They noticed how movement was woven gently into every day. Not just exercise, but intentional, joyful movement, walking to the market, tending a garden, stretching in the morning sun. There were no gyms, no fitness trackers, just life itself as the daily workout. And that, it turned out, was more than enough. Sleep, too, was treated with care. Though they rose early, the elders did not overextend themselves. They understood the value of rest and made time for naps and long nights of peaceful sleep. Their homes were quiet sanctuaries, free from clutter and distraction. Simplicity again and again appeared as a silent teacher. The less they had, the more peaceful they seemed. Their diets, while modest, were full of flavor and care. The elders ate what the earth offered, in small portions and with great appreciation. Meals were sacred moments, never rushed, never careless. The phrase "itadakanasu," said before eating, wasn't just a ritual. It was a humble thank you to everyone and everything that made the meal possible, from the farmer and fisherman to the rain and soil. This gratitude made even the simplest meal a celebration. As the days passed, the authors began to feel different. Slower, perhaps, but in the best way, more aware of the wind, more mindful of their steps. They felt themselves loosening the grip of their own modern habits. And in that space they too began to sense their Ikigai not as a clear, flashing sign, but as a quiet tug of the heart toward something meaningful. In the evenings they would sit on a quiet porch with their hosts, sipping warm tea and watching the colors change in the sky. There were no big declarations, no grand answers, just the simple presence of another day lived fully. And that, they realized, was the heart of it all. Ikigai wasn't about finding something. It was about being someone connected to the world, grateful for each moment, and awake to the quiet joys of daily life. As the sun peeked gently through the rice fields and the roosters crowed their soft morning song, Hector and Francesca settled deeper into the rhythm of island life. With each passing day, they felt more like students and less like visitors, learning not just from interviews or studies, but from quiet observation. The elders never rushed to teach, but their lives were full of quiet wisdom that revealed itself in the smallest things. A way of placing a teacup, the soft care and sweeping of floor, the way they smiled when they spoke your name. In the quiet of their observations, the authors reflected on something many of the elders had in common: a deep state of calm. This wasn't just peace in the absence of noise, it was a calm that lived in the bones. These long-living men and women had cultivated inner stillness, not by retreating from the world, but by being fully present within it. The chaos of the outside world couldn't rattle them, because inside they were steady. This steadiness came, in part, from their ability to stay in the moment. Whether they were chopping vegetables, watering plants, or folding laundry, they weren't thinking about the past or worrying about tomorrow. They were here, completely here. It reminded the authors of a Japanese phrase they heard often: Ichigo Ichi-e, which means one time, one meeting. Every moment is unique, never to be repeated, so it must be lived fully. This simple belief guided how they interacted with others, how they spent their time, and how they treated even the most ordinary tasks. They also noticed how these elders spoke rarely of regret. It wasn't that they had perfect lives. Many had lived through war, lost loved ones, or faced hardship, but they had learned not to cling to pain. Instead of letting bitterness grow, they let go. They moved forward with light steps, carrying only what was useful: the lesson, the memory, the strength. Another quiet thread running through their lives was a love of nature. These elders were not separate from the earth, they were part of it. They tended to their plants with the tenderness of old friends. walked barefoot on the soil, and knew when the wind would shift just by the scent in the air. There was a reverence in how they spoke of the seasons, the moon, the rains. Life, to them, was a dance with nature, not a race against it. This closeness to the earth reminded them of their place in the larger cycle of things, and it helped keep their worries small and their hearts wide open. The authors thought back to their own city lives, so fast, so crowded, so loud, and understood why stress weighed so heavily in the modern world. People had become disconnected from others, from nature, even from themselves. But in Okinawa, life was interwoven. People knew where their food came from, who their neighbors were, what season the flowers would bloom. This connection anchored them. As they reflected further, Hector and Frances began to see how important purposeful living was to longevity. In many parts of the world, people retire and drift, unsure of what to do next, feeling unneeded, but not here. The people of Okinawa didn't retire from life. They shifted gently into new forms of purpose. A fisherman might stop going to sea, but begin teaching the younger generation. A woman who once ran a shop might turn to storytelling or caring for great-grandchildren. There was always something to wake up for, and that something didn't need to be grand. It could be as simple as preparing breakfast, as calming as knitting, or as joyful as singing in the local choir. These tasks, no matter how small, were never viewed as chores. They were chances to be useful, to be connected, to keep the spirit alive. One of the elders put it best: "As long as my fingers move, I will make things. When they stop, I'll teach others how to make them. And when I can no longer speak, I will smile. That is enough." In these words, the authors heard the essence of Ikigai, the quiet flame that never asks for applause, only for presence. They also spent time learning about the concept of flow state many Okinawans reached without ever having heard the word. Flow is when you are so deeply absorbed in an activity that you lose track of time. Your mind doesn't wander, and everything feels effortless. Whether it's painting, gardening, or writing a letter, flow brings a sense of peace and fulfillment. These elders experienced it often, not because they chased it, but because they had designed lives where flow was part of their daily rhythm. Flow, they found, was more likely to happen when you did something you enjoyed, something that challenged you just enough, not too easy, not too hard. The villagers had mastered this balance. Their days were filled with small tasks that engaged their hands and hearts, creating countless opportunities for flow to find them. And as they moved from village to village, Hector and Frances also noticed the importance of spiritual grounding. Religion, as such, wasn't always practiced formally, but there was a deep spiritual thread running through everything. Offerings were made to ancestors. Festivals were held in honor of the seasons. Gratitude was expressed daily, not just in prayer, but in action. The elders didn't separate the sacred from the everyday. They lived as though each moment was a chance to show respect for life itself. All these threads, purpose, movement, connection, gratitude, nature, flow, were braided together into a way of living that was gentle yet strong. And within that braid was the quiet presence of Ikigai, holding it all together. The authors began to feel as if they were collecting pieces of a beautiful, invisible puzzle. Each elder, each habit, each smile added another piece. And slowly the picture became clear not as a formula, but as a feeling. The feeling of waking up without dread, of being needed, of being part of something greater than yourself. That was Ikigai. As the fireflies blinked softly in the dusk, and the old songs drifted across the village, Hector and Francesc knew they had found what they came for, not a single answer, but a new way to live. Night fell gently on the village, casting soft shadows on the worn wooden homes and the peaceful faces within them. The air was thick with the scent of tea leaves and fresh earth, and the quiet hum of cicadas sang a lullaby that wrapped the island in serenity. Hector and Francesc sat together one last evening under the canopy of stars, feeling as though time itself had slowed to sit with them. By now the lessons of Okinawa had taken root in their hearts, not as rules or commands, but as soft truths whispered by the wind, truths that echoed through every smile and every humble task. They had come searching for the secret of a long and happy life, and what they found was not something to achieve, but something to live. A kind of wisdom that wasn't taught, it was shown, day by day, in the choices people made and the energy they brought into the world. They realized then that Ikigai is not just for the elderly, not just for those who have time to reflect. It belongs to everyone at any age. In fact, the sooner one finds it, the more gently life can unfold. It's not always something you stumble upon. Sometimes it's something you build, slowly, from the things you love, the people you care for, and the values you hold close. The authors thought about the world they came from, the cities full of stress and comparison, of racing and restlessness. People often lived disconnected from their bodies, from their joy, from each other. They chased happiness like a shadow, always just out of reach. But the elders of Okinawa reminded them, happiness is not out there. It's right here, in this moment, in this breath, and the chance to do something meaningful, no matter how small. One of the oldest women they met had said something they would never forget. If you want to live long, don't try to be young. Try to be useful. Those words echoed deeply. In a culture obsessed with youth and productivity, here was a woman in her hundreds who believed the truest vitality came from helping others, from contributing something of value, from simply being present and kind. And then there was the way these elders handled time. They didn't fill their days with distractions or endless tasks. They gave space to quiet, to rest, to solitude. They didn't fear being alone because they had strong roots within themselves. And when they were with others, they were truly with them. No phones, no rush, just eyes that listened and hearts that heard. In Okinawa, aging wasn't something to be feared. It was celebrated. Wrinkles were stories. Gray hair was a badge of wisdom. Elders were not cast aside. They were pillars of the community, keepers of memory and guides for the young. Their lives were not winding down. They were shining brighter with each year, lit by the flame of Ikigai that never went out. The authors asked themselves, what would it be like if the whole world lived this way? What if, instead of chasing after life, we welcomed it, slowly and gratefully? What if every morning began with a purpose and every evening ended with peace? They understood now that Ikigai isn't about doing one big thing. It's about doing many small things with love. It's in writing a poem, baking bread, teaching a child, caring for a plant, listening without judgment, or walking with a friend. It's in the laughter shared over soup, the calloused hands of a gardener, the steady beat of a drum at a village dance. And when those things are done day after day with care and consistency, life begins to feel rich not in things, but in meaning. the soul softens, the heart opens, and the days stretch long and beautiful, filled not with noise, but with harmony. So as their time on the island came to an end, Hector and Francesca gathered all they had learned, not in a list or a lecture, but as a gentle invitation, an invitation to live slowly, move often, eat lightly, smile frequently, connect deeply, and above all, to wake each day with something that lights you up inside. They had seen that Ikigai was not a distant treasure to be found, but a light within us all, waiting to be noticed. Sometimes it flickers, sometimes it burns brightly, but it is always there. It is the quiet answer, too. The question, why do I get up in the morning? As they boarded the boat that would carry them away from Okinawa, they looked back at the smiling faces waving from the shore, the old man with the sun hat, the woman with the dancing eyes, the children giggling at their feet, and they carried that warmth with them, not just as a memory, but as a new way to live. And from that day on, they too would wake with purpose. They too would seek joy in the simple, care in the small, and connection in the everyday. For they had found their own Ikigai, not in a place, but in a way of being. And just like that, under the gentle hush of stars, their journey came to a close, not with an ending, but with a beginning. A beginning for anyone who chooses to listen to the quiet call of purpose and step gently into a life of meaning, one beautiful day at a time. Thank you for spending this peaceful time with us on Mindful Reads. If this story brought you a sense of calm, clarity, or curiosity, we invite you to stay with us on this journey of gentle learning. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story that speaks to your soul.